We are so excited to have you. Thank you so much for being here. This is week 4 of our test prep, and we're going to be talking about strategies for the math test, specifically the performance task. And we're also going to be giving you some resources so you can prepare for the California Science exam if that's something that applies to your grade level or to your scholar's grade level. So our agenda today, we're just, as always, because this is our school culture, going to review our mission and vision. We're going to review our values. We're going to have a short little icebreaker, and we'll talk about the math portion of the CAASPP, as well as giving you those resources for the California Science exam and giving you the opportunity to look at a flyer that will help you take a practice or training test. And then finally, we'll just take an exit ticket from you before you head out the door so that we can get that valuable feedback that helps us tailor these to things that you're wanting to find out about.
All right, our mission and vision, as always, I think we'll have these memorized by the end of our series here for test prep. Our mission statement is to inspire and develop innovative, creative, self-directed learners, one scholar at a time, starting with you. Our vision statement is to create a collaborative virtual learning community. That's why we are all here together. Thank you for being here to collaborate with us, inspiring scholars to appreciate the ways in which arts and sciences nurture a curiosity for lifelong learning and prepare scholars to take responsibility for their future success. So thank you for being here again and for partnering with us to achieve this. Our Compass Charter values are Arctic values: achievement, respect, teamwork, integrity, and communication. Again, all reflected just in the fact that we're here together. So again, we appreciate it so much. We're just so happy that you came today and that you're here.
Okay, so our icebreaker is just going to be you answering in the chat how confident you and your scholar are feeling, or your scholars are feeling about CAASPP testing. And if you answer not very confident, maybe you could also include the why, because that is valuable information for us as we, kind of round the bend into the last few weeks of test prep. So go ahead in the chat and answer that question. So just in case, those of you that are in, that's awesome. You're ready for testing. Woohoo! And any of you that didn't answer, the chat is actually right down at the bottom middle of your screen if you're on a computer. If you're on an iPad, it might be up at the top right corner. I know he'll do well with the process. Scholars all kinds of worried with anything related to the word test. So I love that you answered that, and I appreciate that so much. Something that might be helpful is, instead of when you're talking about it at home, instead of referring to it as a test, just refer to it as an assessment and talk about it as something that's just assessing where your scholar is at in the school year. So it's less about getting the right answers and more about finding out where your scholar is at and finding out how we need to support your scholar more thoroughly and completely. I don't know if that, do you have thoughts on that? Does that help at all? Sophia, you're a little nervous about it because it might be hard. And again, I just want to really encourage you. This is just about finding out where you are at and what knowledge you've retained from the school year. It is not about penalizing or finding what you don't know. It's really finding out about how we can support you better. So it's a huge tool for us in making sure that we offer everything we can offer to help you learn what you need to learn. Do you have thoughts on that? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm glad. So
Good.
you don't need to stress about it because it's not something that's going to affect anything. It's more to help us be more helpful to you. Does that make you feel a little bit better?
Yes.
I'm so glad.
Good. All right.
Oh, I just saw Randy's comment in the chat box. I appreciate that, Randy, and also just have a conversation with your ST and your case manager as well, so you can, figure out what the most encouraging way to administer the test would be for your scholar. So really important to just have that conversation with your ST as well. I'm being quiet now, Ms. Hobson. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Give everybody a chance to think through it.
Okay. This next slide is mine too. So we are going to be talking about the math portion of the CAASPP today. Last time we talked about the ELA and just familiarized you and offered some tools for you to use in order to practice the performance task portion of the English language arts section of the CAASPP. So this week, we're going to be talking about the math section. So you can see there's CAT and PT. Does anybody know in the chat box really quickly, what does CAT stand for, do you think? We talked about it last week too, so let's see what we remember. What does CAT stand for? CAT. Anybody?
Who remembers?
Okay, it is the California, the computer adaptive test. I had a brain glitch, that was actually funny. So it's the computer adaptive test, and the key word in that is adaptive. We were just discussing how improved the CAASPP is now that it's adaptive, because that means that it's going to be paying attention to when your scholar starts to hit a wall, and it will bump the question levels down so that your scholar builds confidence, and then it will work them back up again as they build confidence. So the adaptive piece makes it a whole lot more accurate in how it's assessing your scholar than it used to when it was paper and pencil. So that's a really neat change to the California assessment. And then the PT stands for performance task, and we're going to actually be showing you an example of that today. So the performance task focuses more on problem solving and thinking critically, possibly using evidence to support how you answer, and then even showing your steps depending on what type of problem they're asking you to solve. So again, something that we have been kind of pounding into everybody, because it's just so important, is reading each question and actually all the answers as well, really carefully and thoroughly, and even more than once, because sometimes you don't read it properly, before you even attempt to answer it.
Yeah, so to talk just a little bit more about that, because it has been such an important tip. It was tip number 2, maybe it should have been tip number 1, because it is I think the most important tip, the one that we've gone over the most and is really critical to really how well you do on this assessment, is to read those questions super carefully. We spent a lot of time last week talking about action words, finding those action words within the question, so we know what it is that we have to do. What are we being asked to do? What information are we being asked to provide? Are we being asked to select something, create something, drag and drop something, explain, match? What are we being asked to do? So it's really important, even in math, not just for language arts, but it's really important that we read those questions real carefully, so that we know just what we're meant to do. And so just watch for those action words in every single question. and make sure that you have fully understood what's being asked of you. I don't want to say there's any trick questions in these assessments. I don't believe there's any trick questions, but a part of the exam is to sort of evaluate how well you're able to pull that information and recognize instructions and things like that. So I won't say they're trick questions, but I will say that they may sometimes be worded in such a way that you might want to go back and just double check. So read those questions real carefully. All right, next we're going to talk about the Math PT, which, as we just said, is the performance task portion of the assessment. So this is the part that requires you to answer a set of questions that are all set and centered around a common topic or a real world problem, but it's all just that one problem or topic. So it's exactly the same as the ELA in format, right? You're going to have that one common topic, that one problem to work on, and then you're going to be asked various questions about that topic. So on the one hand, it might feel a little intimidating that you're going to be asked a whole bunch of questions about this one thing. But on the flip side of that, it might be a little bit of a relief to know that you just can focus on this one topic or this one problem and focus just on working out that problem. So I guess it depends on how you look at it, but if you're a half full kind of person, like I hope that you are, hopefully the performance task will actually be a little bit of a relief, knowing that you can just focus on one thing and you won't be asked to jump around to all different types of topics and problems. So this will, that pattern will carry over here to the math portion. So in math PTs, you will need to integrate skills across multiple domains, clusters, and standards to demonstrate your ability to use your mathematical knowledge to solve those problems. And this is going to give you an opportunity to demonstrate your ability to apply your knowledge, higher order thinking skills, to explore and analyze more complex scenario. Okay, so it may not be just here's a question, provide your answer. It's going to be more complex than that. That's what the performance task, that's how it's meant to be. So that's okay. All right. Okay, next up, more tips.
Yeah, so just talking a little bit more about the math assessment. One thing that we really recommend, and not just for the math assessment, but also for the ELA portion of the assessment, is getting a piece of scratch paper and a pen or pencil prior to logging into the Zoom session with your ST. And the reason for that is when you're within the ELA, it gives you the opportunity to write down keywords, write, process of elimination, whatever you need to do to visually write things through, strike things through, whatever you need to do before you actually work inside the test. That scratch paper is there for you, but you need to have it ahead of time because you won't be allowed to walk away and go get anything during the test. So we recommend a piece of scratch paper. And now talking about the math, it gives you the opportunity to write down your problems, write down your steps, review and double check your calculations. Look for and write down any keywords you see in what's written on your computer screen. So that scratch paper is just really important for working through your problems. In terms of tips, we just talked about a few of them, but up on the screen you see review math terms, watching for keywords so you know which operations to use, review and double check your calculations, making sure you have that scratch paper, and then using the strike through tool, which we've talked about a few times, to cross out the wrong answers. And something that we're going to be reviewing again next week is how to use those tools. So we look forward to having you come next week so we can have you practice with those a little bit. Miss Hobson is going to put a couple of links in the chat box for you that are specific, just websites that will review all of your math terms. So they're math term glossaries. One is more focused on the younger grades and the other one is a little bit broader. So depending on what grade level you have, there'll be something that will apply to you. But we wanted to just make sure you had a resource for that. Okay, so we're going to look at a sample question together. And let me copy this. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Then if Ms. Hobson, well, actually, I've got it right here. I can just put it in. If you'd like to look at this on your own independently, please feel free to go ahead and click on the link in the chat box. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to look at it together as well. And if I look like I'm looking away, it's because I'm looking at my big second screen that I've got displayed for you here. So something we wanted to point out to you when you're looking at this question as soon as it populates is that the calculator for your student pre-populates, and the calculator that you need specifically will populate for you. So whether it's just a basic calculator, a scientific calculator, or a graphing calculator, that will populate accordingly. So whichever one your scholar needs will be up here. So that's a really cool feature that you don't have to stress over. So as you can see, they give all of the information that your scholar will need to draw from on the left, just like in the ELA. And then they ask some specific questions about that information. So just like we said earlier, really important, read through all of it. You've got a chart, you've got information about how to care for the turtle and numbers within that information. You've got information on the cost of aquariums. So all of these things are going to be something that's asked about. So when you look on the right, it's talking about volume. What's the minimum volume in gallons of the aquarium? So just curious, what do you think, where do you think that your scholar would find this information? What is the minimum volume in gallons of the aquarium needed for a turtle that is 4.5 inches long? What information do you think they need to draw from in order to answer this question? Anybody? Last time you did a math problem practice, the commas would not work in the math answer section. You mean when you were answering like in a sentence? Gotcha. From the turtle facts chart. So that's a good that's a good place to look. You're going to need a little bit more than that. So if you look below that, what do you see? What do you see below the chart? Does everybody see the caring for your turtle section? Awesome, yay. Okay, so in the caring for the turtle section, which sentence do you see there might be applicable to the question they're asking?
You're welcome to use the microphone if it's easier.
You're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome to use the microphone. That would be awesome. Which sentence do you think? The first one or the second one under caring for your turtle? Yep, the first one. So this is where your scratch paper could come in as you're trying to figure out what information you're going to need to use. You could notate that information on your scratch paper so that you don't forget, and then go back and work out this problem. Great job, you guys. So down here, Luke has a 65-gallon rectangular aquarium with a base of 40. I'm not asking you to work this out, but it says, what is the area in square inches of the tabletop? Which information do you need to look at in order to figure that out? Do you need any of this information on the left, or is the information actually in the question in order to work this out? Again, I'm not asking you to figure it out. I'm just asking you, where is the information? Is it on the left or is it in the question? Anybody?
Don't be shy.
In this case,
Don't be shy.
I know.
There you
Yep, in
go.
the question. Good job. Awesome job. So again, this is one of those situations. It's really important that you've read all the information so that you're not spending time hunting for it. Because if you've read through this already and you get this question, you're already going to know, oh, it's not in here. It's right here. So knowing where to find that information, reading the questions really thoroughly, using your scratch paper to write down that information and work out your problem before you answer it, all of that's really useful for working through these performance tasks. All right. I'm going to stop my share and go to the next slide.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully that was pretty reassuring to you. The performance task looks very much, pretty much identical to what ELA looks like. It's just obviously a different subject matter, but the setup is the same, which will hopefully make it nice and comfortable for you when you get in there so you can navigate. So we want to change gears again to the CAASPP, which is the California Science Test. So during this assessment, there are two parts, just like language arts and math, there are two parts. The difference is that the CAASPP test has what's called the FD, the fixed domain. So we've been talking a lot about the CAT, the computer adaptive test. So for English and math, the questions will adapt to your skill level and it will kind of bring you around and bring you about to max out your skill level. With CAASPP, it's a little bit different. So the fixed domain means that pretty much everyone is asked the same questions per grade level. So if you're a fifth grade scholar, then you'll be asked, all the scholars that take the CAASPP will be asked that same set of questions. It's kind of a fixed skill set. And it just wants to see, hey, do you know these skills yet or not? So it doesn't really adapt with you, but it's okay if you don't have those certain skills yet that it's asking you. If you're not sure of the answer, it's still okay. There's still no grade assigned. It still doesn't mean you're going to pass or fail anything. It just means that everybody's asked the same questions in this case. It also has the performance task, which again will look just like the one we just looked at for math. And that's just the same as the format that we looked at for language arts. So that will all be consistent in the format for you. It'll just be, yeah, that fixed domain versus the CAT. There's a little bit of a difference there. It probably won't make any difference to you as a scholar sitting down and taking the test. It's all going to feel like a test for the most part. But just so you know the difference there and how those are just a little bit different. So you'll need to read for the performance task and maybe even for some of the science questions as well. You're going to be asked to maybe read short passages, to look at charts, look at graphs, gather textual evidence to answer certain questions. Some might be multiple choice, some might be short response. You may even have an essay response. So the question types will be similar. It'll just be now on the science subject matter. So just so you know that that's coming too, but not all grade levels have to take the science test. So Miss Lastly just put in the chat 5th, 8th, and 11th grade. Or if you didn't take it in 11th grade, then you'll be asked to take it in 12th grade. So just so you know, but if you already took it in 11th grade, then you're good to go. Or if you took it some other time, this is what we do at CCS, is I believe 11th and 12th. But if you are transferring from somewhere else, or if you're a 9th or 10th grader and you already, you wouldn't be a 9th grader, sorry. If you're a 10th grader and you already took it, different schools may have a little bit different protocol for when they're going to have you do the CAASPP. But here we're going to have you do it in 11th grade or 12th if you did not take it as an 11th grader, as well as 5th and 8th grades. Okay, so let's look a little bit more at the CAASPP. We're going to share this resource sheet with you. Since we spent some time going over ELA as well as math, you should kind of have an idea of what you're going to be seeing when you get into the CAASPP test. Since not everybody has to take it, we're not going to spend a whole session going over the CAASPP. This is for a smaller group of scholars to be able to take it, but we want you to have these resources. So go ahead and click the link there for that CAASPP resource sheet. And then I also want us to watch this video together, and this explains CAASPP a little bit further in a little bit more detail. So if you're a 5th, 8th, 11th, or 12th grade scholar who did not take it in 11th grade, pay close attention to the video. It'll just explain to you a little bit more about what we will be doing, what you will be doing for CAASPP.
California Science Test and the Next Generation Science Standards. California is well on its way to building a world-class science education system that will prepare students to succeed in the global economy. With the help of California science teachers, we developed the California Science Test, or CAASPP. This assessment was designed not only to measure student performance in science, but also to encourage and reinforce the innovative ways science is being taught in classrooms throughout the state. The CAASPP is based on the California Next Generation Science Standards, also called California NGSS, which were adopted by the State Board of Education in 2013. Our teachers, scientists, college professors, and business and industry leaders all took part in helping to write the standards. The California NGSS calls for students with a deep understanding of core scientific ideas and concepts, using skills like investigation, problem solving, communication, and collaboration. The standards embrace young people's innate curiosity by introducing science at an earlier age, encouraging them to ask lots of questions and emphasizing hands-on investigation and discovery. This approach is more engaging and in line with what we know about how students learn best.
Hi, my name is Brian Ellis. I'm a physics teacher at Natoma Charter School in Sacramento. With the new standards coming, with NGSS, with new assessments, I'm really excited because I feel like all of the emphasis that I place on doing science and the process of science and on analyzing data and interpreting data and drawing conclusions, all of that is going to be rewarded on the new assessments, and because the new standards place such an emphasis on science practices alongside science concepts.
The standards combine science and engineering practices to help students understand how science works in the natural world. The California NGSS integrates three-dimensional learning to help students discover how and why certain phenomena occur.
And I'm very excited with the shift to the three-dimensional learning that NGSS brings us. I really think it connects the students to the beauty of the natural world and science in general. It's a real honor to be a part of the process and bringing these standards to California students and educators. And I really believe that a great science education benefits both the individual student and their community.
The three-dimensional learning concepts in the California NGSS are made up of three distinct but equally important components: disciplinary core ideas, science and engineering practices, and cross-cutting concepts. Disciplinary core ideas explain why certain phenomena occur. Science and engineering practices give students tools to further explore and explain certain phenomena by gathering and analyzing data to find patterns or draw conclusions. Cross-cutting concepts help students make connections across the sciences and other disciplines. The California Science Test supports the hands-on teaching that science teachers are doing in the classroom as they help students to become college and career ready. The CAASPP also promotes improvements to teaching and learning, encourages science instruction in every grade, not just tested grades, measures the range and depth of the California NGSS, provides high-quality questions that reflect the standards, and minimizes testing time and costs while making the test accessible for all students. The CAASPP takes an average of 2 hours and is administered to students in grades 5 and 8 and once in high school. Like California's other online statewide assessments, the CAASPP is a computer-based test, and each test is made up of both high-quality questions and performance tasks. Each question in the CAASPP incorporates at least 2 of the 3 dimensions of the California NGSS. As with any California state assessment, we will continue to take the time and care needed to make sure the CAASPP is valid, fair, and reliable. Students take the CAASPP in the spring in grades 5 and 8, and once in grade 10, 11, or 12. Parents and guardians will then receive a student score report, a summary of test results that shows school districts, county, and state levels will also be provided to educators to help inform teaching and learning. You can become familiar with this test through the CAASPP training and practice tests, which you will find through the online practice and training tests portal on CAASPP.org. For more information, please visit www.caaspp.org. Special thanks to Natomas Charter School.
All right. Well, thanks for watching that with us. I think it is very informative and lets you know how you will use this information, how your learning coach can use the information, how your school will use the information to improve and inform our teaching methods as well. So yeah, thank you for taking the time to watch that with us. The last thing, is this guy here I would like to share with you. I believe the link is in the chat. But this is a practice and training test flyer for the CAASPP. So if you're a scholar who's taking the CAASPP, or even if you're not and you just want to get a sneak peek at it, take a look at this flyer here. It's got a link that goes to the training tests for CAASPP. And if you just want a sneak peek, if you want to just see what the CAASPP is about, go ahead and take one of the training tests because those are a little bit shorter. It just kind of gives you an opportunity to look at it, to see what kind of questions there are and things like that. It's just more of a sampling. And then if you go ahead and take the practice test, that's going to be like a full-length test. So you can really get an authentic experience of exactly what it'll be like to take that test. So if you're so inclined to just have a look and see what that test will be like, we encourage you for CAASPP, ELA, and math to go ahead and give these practice and training tests a shot just to get a little more familiar with them. That's usually a really good idea. And then the one last thing I'd like to touch on, if you're a scholar who needs to take CAASPP this year, or whenever you do end up being in a grade level where you need to take CAASPP, we talked before about how language arts and math have both the CAT and the PT. So you'll log in and take one, and then you have to kind of log back into the session to access the next test. Whereas with CAASPP, the performance task is built into the same test as the, sorry, I lost my words here, as the fixed domain portion of the test. So you'll sit down in one testing session all at one time and take the whole thing, and the performance pieces are all integrated in there together. So no need to log out and back in and all of that. Slightly different format, but it's all still there. So we know this has been a lot of information over the last couple of weeks between ELA, math, and a little bit of CAASPP sprinkled in. So we know that there's probably some questions, and we're really happy and wanting to get those answered for you. So if you have any questions about anything you've heard so far, or if you have any questions about something we did not cover and you would like to have covered or answered, please let us know. We're going to hang around here for a little while and answer those questions for you. Does anybody have any right now, hot burning questions at the moment that you would like some answers for before we move on?
Bye.
Hey. Was that a question or was that an accidental microphone?
Chat, please.
That was a bye.
Okay. Oh, a bye. Okay. Well, don't go yet. Hold on. We got one more thing for you. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them into the chat while we close up the session, and then we will stick around and answer those for you.
Or the other thing you can do is you can fill out our exit ticket, which we're going to go to in just a moment. And you can put your question on that exit ticket and in the feedback area so that we know how to address them next week. And we've been putting in a quote each week. This week is another one from Buzz Aldrin. I know the sky is not the limit because there are footprints on the moon and I made some of them. So just thinking about that what you can accomplish can be beyond anything you would have expected of yourself. So now Ms. Hobson is going to put the exit ticket in the chat box, the link, and if you would just take a moment to complete that and give us some feedback, anything that you want to know we haven't covered, any questions that we didn't answer, either you can ask those now or you can go ahead and put them on the exit ticket. And for all of you that are watching in the recording, thank you for taking the time to do that. We hope you have a fantastic rest of your week and we will see you next Friday. So next Friday is our kickoff to technology troubleshooting. We're going to be reviewing the tools for the tests. So all the tools that are available to your scholars when they're testing, we're going to be going through those. And we're going to be kicking off, making sure that your technology is squared away so that you have a smooth transition into the testing season. If we can't conquer your technology issues, we actually have our school IT person coming the following week to conquer anything we're not able to handle next week. So we've got a couple of weeks of technology troubleshooting scheduled for you. Before I launch the exit ticket and say farewell, I just want to ask you one more time, if you don't have computers for each of your scholars that have both working cameras and working microphones, please right away shoot an email off to your ST and ask about requesting a computer for testing. And that includes if you have a personally purchased, say that 10 times, a personally purchased Google Chromebook. Those will not be compatible with the test browser. So even if you have a personally purchased Google Chromebook, you'll have to request a computer for testing. If you have one from the school, most likely you have a browser. You just need to double check it, but it will be compatible. It's just the personally purchased one. So working microphone, working camera, and you can't have a personally purchased Google Chromebook. So check in with your ST, make sure you're squared away because we need to put in those requests right away. And we look forward to seeing you next week.